Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream.
Interesting one, huh? This one.
Before we get into it, they always say two things you should avoid talking about: politics and religion.
We're screwed.
We're breaking that rule today. We're discussing Murder Among the Mormons, a documentary that was just released on Netflix. Jay's pick.
This was an interesting one.
I thought it was a really good one.
It was interesting because it was started off. It was a little bit slow for a little bit, and I almost gave up hope, but I stayed the course.
About halfway through episode 2,
and
you're
then
like, okay.
This is getting crazy. And then my favorite thing about these ones, the twist, the plot twist,
the twist,
and there it was, man. And it ended up being a great one.
It was a really good story, really interesting, a lot to it. And just to piggyback on what you said, as far as it being slow, initially it was supposed to be 6 episodes.
Gosh.
You see, when they got acquired it, Netflix acquired it, they're like, "No, we're cutting it to 3." So that was a good call. Applaud to whoever made that decision.
Whoever made that call.
3
They've been listening to our show. They've been listening that we've been saying these things are too drawn out,
less
and
is
so
more, man.
Less is more. Thank you, Netflix.
Less is more.
You can send us a check.
Yeah, anytime. Just make sure we get that percentage. The story follows a man named Mark Hoffman, and it starts out with a discovery, and he makes a discovery in a Bible he gets at a rare bookstore or something like that, and it was supposedly from the granddaughter of the man who started Mormonism, and it's an incredible find, and right out of the gate, before they even get into the whole forgery thing, which we'll get to, my first thing was, and you had to believe this too, how the hell did these people just be like, how the hell do you keep finding this stuff? You keep walking in these stores and you find these things?
Didn't raise a flag. This guy was just, he was good at finding. Well, because to me, it started slow. Old books. Yeah, he was just he was a guy that dealt in hard to find items, and he would buy and sell these hard to find items.
Again, out of the gate.
Cool.
Out of the gate, dude. He was finding things that was just like, okay, I collect records, right? I have some white whales in my collection. But, I mean, most of the ones that I have, I had to buy. I had to purchase. I didn't find them out in the open. There have been some that I have. But consistently, it is extremely hard to, we're talking about, first pressings, stuff like that are in good condition. The stuff's not easy because guess what? There are thousands of other dudes just like
looking
me
for the same
trying
thing.
to do exactly the same thing. And I guarantee
I didn't, maybe because of the fact that I kind of watch these things with one eye to the side sometimes. So maybe it didn't raise any flags.
Right at the gate, I was like,
it didn't raise any flags for me.
This guy?
I was like, okay, this guy's got a good hustle. He goes around to old bookstores and finds rare finds. I just like flipping items on eBay. You buy something cheap here, you sell it there. I was like, I can get along with his hustle, good hustle. But then, he finds this document that's basically going to turn the whole Mormon religion upside down, and the Mormon guys put the kibosh.
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. It's good place.
They turned to gangsters. They went to gangsters,
big time, and it was also directed that way though. Because I think they wanted you to believe. We'll get into that next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern. It is Dark Side of the Stream discussing Murder Among the Mormons. Now, as we said, early on in the documentary, you meet this guy named Mark Hoffman who finds what they called the Salamander Letter. And in it was supposedly written by, what was it? I guess it was the founder's wife who wrote the letters, or a friend or acquaintance that basically said in the story in the Book of Mormon, he was led to the golden book or the golden plated book by an angel.
Golden plates,
which the angel's name was Moroni or something. The documentary they kept showing interplace of like the story of, it was so cheese, but it was like, but basically the idea was that this, angel showed him the book and this was the word of God and this is what you need to follow. Well, this letter said, actually, it wasn't an angel. It was a white salamander.
Yeah,
and so they looked at this letter and like, this is legit. And there was actually a huge, and still is, market for historical items, because it's not like Christianity where this stuff would be 2,000 years old. This stuff is in religion terms is relatively new,
modern, right?
And stuff was held on to, stuff exists, and anything the church can get their hands on, they want it. Not only to because they're huge into the history and it's a big part of the religion, but also in this case
to control the narrative.
They control the narrative. Now it's not just the Mormon Church that has done this.
Oh yeah,
the Catholic
for sure.
Church has done
every
it.
church. Yeah.
And it also goes to show you how well if they were that concerned about that, what else are they hiding?
Right,
fake
right,
or
right.
not?
Yeah, right,
fake
right.
or not?
Yes.
I implore you, and I'm never going to dog anyone if you believe in a spaghetti monster or God above, whatever.
Wow,
that's great.
how'd you know?
That's great. As long as you're not hurting anybody, do
Right.
whatever
As long
you
as
want.
you live your life good,
Yeah.
then if that
It's all
helps
good.
that, then
so
cool.
I'm not knocking anybody's
Right.
religion at all, but again, you kind of see what people, as far as they'll go to stop the narrative, to control the narrative. It kind of makes you wonder, and it's just a little wish-washy. But they did. They went out and paid a lot of money for this thing.
Well, allegedly.
The salamander they did through a guy who was kind of an intermediary between Mark and the church, and the church said, "You buy this and hold on to it," and it just kind of goes away. So then he finds some more stuff, a lot more stuff. And it's becoming clear this guy has a knack for finding things, and some of these things were just unbelievable.
Hey, everybody's got a skill. Everybody's got a skill, man.
It's something else. Something else I loved about this was all the old school TV footage, TV news that they showed.
Yeah,
I think they did a really good job. The editor who in this show was really smart. And you know what? It made me miss TV with the way it used to be. You know what I mean?
Oh,
when we were young, just like the 80s and 90s, like TV was just it was cheese, but it was good.
There, a few channels.
Are we getting old?
I don't know, because I have more channels now than I've ever had when I was a kid, and I never watched TV.
You can't find anything.
I go home, I put on YouTube. I find things to watch on YouTube,
and
that's all I watch.
It blows my mind. I know. What are we paying for? Go outside, spend time outside.
Man.
Anyway, so yeah, Dark Side of the Stream. We're talking Murder Among the Mormons. We'll talk more about what this guy has found, and then really what happened after things started to come to a head for him on the Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but in your car.
Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio today discussing Murder Among the Mormons. So before we get into this, did you ever forge anything as a child, your parents' signature or anything?
I'm sure I had to have.
You don't remember like specifics?
Had
or
to
anything?
have. It had to be a report card. I remember one time I got in big trouble for lying to my dad about the report card. I remember. Like, I just said, he finally asked after, there should have been a few of them already. And I was like, no, I don't know. I literally said, no, I don't know. They're just not doing them like that.
They're just not doing
I guess
them.
something like that. And he found out and I had a bunch of D's or something on there. He was livid, man. Livid. Threatened to stick me in military school.
I'll tell you a story that I'm not too proud of.
Oh, here we go.
If you ever look at my signature and you look at my dad's signature, it's almost identical. And you know why? Because I learned how to sign stuff based off forging his name.
Oh, that's so dirty.
And so my signature is extremely close to his.
Mr. Holmes, I hope you're listening. I apologize for your son's actions.
He already knows this. I've told him this. He can see my signature now. He knows. But it's funny because my eldest kid, she gave for Christmas this year, she painted I'm a big fan of Cowboy Bebop, and she painted this really cool glass thing of one of the characters and signed it. And when I opened it, I go, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And then I looked in the corner. I go, "I didn't sign this." Her signature is exactly the same as mine. Scared me to death. I was like, "What are you doing?" Anyway, back to the subject. We're talking about Murder Among the Mormons, and basically, this guy, Mark Hoffman, had found all these really interesting historical religious artifacts. He was starting to get into other stuff too.
Buy and trade. He was making some good money, right?
Making some good money.
Big bucks. He bought a Toyota. He bought a real nice Toyota.
Yeah. It really, really crazy. And as we mentioned, at first you kind of get the idea that, it's the evil Mormon church. They're
trying
doing
to
this
shut
stuff.
him down, right?
Basically, what happens is 3 bombs go off in the span of 2 days in the Salt Lake area. A guy who was basically a buyer of some of these documents gets killed. The ex-partner of his wife gets killed, and then Mark Hoffman gets blown up.
Yep.
And at first you're like,
Mormon church.
They're
Mormon church.
the way it's done is they kind of, and then they start looking at.
I go, this is dirty.
There's a connection.
That's
here.
when I texted you. Hey, you got to watch this documentary. This church is going dirty.
It's dirty. That's the way they make you think. But then you start to realize that maybe Mark Hoffman isn't who he says he is. And then they start doing their homework. And all these people that had actually said that these were legitimate documents were fooled. And on down the line, it turns out everything this guy had dealt with and done had been a forgery. One of the greatest forgers in history.
Yeah.
Because not only did he fool people and so on, there was a lot of people who
He fooled experts, government agencies.
The United States government. When he was doing his interview after he was convicted of murder, he was talking about how far back this went. And he started doing this as a teenager with coins.
Yep.
He sent in a coin that he had forged to the United States government.
And they certified
it as legit.
Dude,
and
that's your hustle right there,
his
bro.
His whole thing about if it's kind of the truth, but it's not, but someone says it is the truth.
Well, yeah, 100%, right?
Then it's the truth. That's scary as hell. That is so
and that's
scary.
that's another one. Like I watched the Ark documentary the other day, and the same thing. It's like if it's a forgery or it's real, if people appreciate it and are paying the money for it, what does it really matter?
Well, see, that's a
who made
collectible item. It's like if you have a Jay Stevens rookie card,
Right.
you know, and it's worth $100 to me, but it's only worth $5 to that guy. It's
Right.
only worth what we're willing to pay.
Yeah, which is
so
like Bitcoin,
ultimately,
right?
like the certification thing, it's cool if you're wanting to verify it and move it on in the value of the product. But if that piece of used Kleenex is worth $1,000 to you, brother, go ahead, go have it at it. I guess
This guy was amazing, like
unbelievable.
If you can forge stuff that good, why are you going and blowing people up? You might as well stick to your script, dude.
Well, eventually, what was going to happen? He had found what they called the McClellan documents. And this kind of solidified more that the Mormon Church had been covering things up. The whole religion.
Yeah, the story was a little
It basically goes
sketch.
back to this guy was raised in a very strict Mormon home, and as he got older, kind of had issues with certain things in the church. And I think not only did he want to benefit financially off of this, he also wanted to hurt the church in any way he could. Well, the word gets out that he's got these documents. They're going to do a big time buy. It's like $300,000. He gets money from a collector in town. That old man, I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, man.
But he had some really good advice, and that was after he lost like $185,000 to this guy. He goes, I was going through a really dark period, and then one day I woke up and I said, he took my money, but I'm not going to let him take anything else. And I moved on. Called his dad, said, tell him I forgive him. And we're all, and I've been fine.
That's the way.
That's great advice to anyone that's going through stuff. But anyway, so eventually everything's coming to a head. Mark knows it. He decides I'm going to blow these guys up to get some heat off me and these forgeries. Ends up killing a guy he dealt with, and then he was going after the dude's partner, but ended up getting his wife instead. They think, and I agree, that third bomb wasn't really intended for him. He claims that he was going to commit suicide, and that's what it was about. But ultimately, I really think that was going. I think he screwed up, and that third one went off when he was going to put it down somewhere. Because he was a sociopath. I don't think he was going to kill himself.
Amazing, man.
Unbelievable. We'll talk more about what happened to Mark Hoffman next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern, discussing murder, forgeries, and the Mormon Church. It's the Dark Side of the Stream, our final segment on 104.7 The Cave. So ultimately, Mark Hoffman was caught thanks to a actual guy who actually said, hey, these are forgeries. Because originally when they were trying to prove that he was done, they couldn't really prove anything or get a warrant until they proved these things were forgeries. They sent it in the FBI. FBI was like, no, it's good. It's legit.
Right. Incredible.
And then there's one guy who was like, no, it's not. The techniques Mark Hoffman came up with to vacuuming the ink through the document,
spraying
all
with these
this
things,
stuff.
and incredible,
It
man.
was so badass.
Master.
But it really came down to a good eye and an investigator who was worth every bit when he discovered that the ink cracked in certain places.
Somebody worked a few extra hours and figured this out.
Which is good.
Yep.
Mark Hoffman will be convicted of 2 counts of murder and a bunch of other stuff. He's in prison for the rest of his life for sure. It's an incredible, crazy story.
It was a good story. Good one.
Messed up a lot of lives.
What do you give it? How many forged items do you give it?
Out of 5,
Yeah.
I would say I'd give it a 4.
Four forged items out of 5. I go 4 as well. Yeah, four forged items out of 5 because it had what I love in everyone is that twist. All of a sudden, something you don't see coming, you're like, whoa. All right, I got to pay attention now.
If you watch this documentary and you are curious about more about the history of the Mormon Church, I implore you to download Last Podcast on the Left, and they do a 6-part series about the Mormon Church. Originally, it was supposed to be 1 episode, but there is so much information about, because again, it was started in the 1800s. Okay. So it's not like we have a wealth of knowledge about these people, how this thing got started, the early days, all that stuff. It is a rabbit hole to go down. And I implore you to check out those guys, listen to that thing. It's It's a very eye-opening series for sure.
Cool.
So now we are, next episode, is it my turn?
I think I picked this one, so
You
it must
did?
be, yeah. I just keep picking winners. Sorry,
Are
man.
you even
I just
sending
keep
me?
picking winners.
He's like sending me
I've
like
got a
5
list. I've got
documentaries
a
a
list
weekend.
for
I'm
you,
like,
man.
bro, I have a kid. I can't. I don't know about you, but I got
That's
stuff
what you
to do.
You sit down with
sit
the
down
kids
and-
sleeping and you watch a documentary, bro.
So I guess just what else we got? What was some of the 2 that you talked to me about this weekend?
Well, we keep backburnering a bunch too. We keep saying we're going to do something,
Yeah,
then we
I know.
backburner them. The Kung Fu one.
Okay, let's do the Kung Fu movie.
Wait, let's get the proper name.
Because I'm a big Kung Fu guy, and I love me some-
Let's see, Mike the Intern here. Iron Fists and Kung Fu Kicks
Awesome.
on Netflix. The history of Kung Fu in motion pictures.
I love it.
It's great.
It's
really
gonna be
well
awesome.
made, real funny, and
And if it's a
Good
JPEG,
history.
it's probably under an hour.
it's short. It is short. It is short, and it's got a lot of hip hop because the way Kung Fu movies got into breakdancing, that's where they got a lot of their moves
Well,
from.
the
So it's
idea
very
that-
cool stuff. The hip hop community and
The Kung Fu movies played in like cheap
Bronx,
theaters,
cheap
in,
Bronx
in,
theaters.
in
They
New
talk
York,
about all
and so
this.
all these kids that were on the street
Yeah.
would go see these, and
Bruce
that's why
Leroy, man.
you got the Wu-Tang Clan and all these. And
It
the
talks
RZA
about
and
all that,
Jizza
man.
and
Yeah,
all
see,
those
you already
dudes.
know this. I didn't know this.
Oh, dude, you know I know this.
I just need Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris.
Oh man, dude, all day. Into the Dragon, one
Billy
of the greatest
Jack.
movies ever.
Well, they talk about all that stuff.
Drunken
man.
Master.
They talk about all that. They
oh,
talk
man,
about the
it's-
old school
dude,
ones. They
so
talk
good.
about the transitions.
So
It's good.
much. Deadly Poisons. There's so many.
Watch
Dude,
it. You got it all. They got it all in
ready.
there.
Then we're going to do some Kung Fu next episode. Remember, download, subscribe, like, share. Dark Side of the Stream with 104.7 The Cave.